Yeah, I'm excited.
Okay, we're live on YouTube. I think we can go ahead and get started, everybody. Thanks for being here. We've got a pretty full house tonight, which is cool. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started with introductory remarks, and then I'll pass it over to the chairs to convene the meeting. So good evening, everyone. My name is Willow Hamilton. I'm the City of Eugene staff representative for this meeting tonight. And before the chairs convene the meeting, I have a few reminders and introductory words. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that tonight's meeting is being held on Kalapuya Ilihi, the traditional indigenous homelands of the Kalapuya people, whom continue to make contributions to their communities here and across the land we now refer to as Oregon. We express our respect to all displaced indigenous people who call Eugene home. The purpose of the Active Transportation Committee is to advise the City of Eugene staff and community organizations and partners on the implementation of Eugene's pedestrian and bicycle strategic plan, to represent community and constituent interests in transportation planning decisions, and to provide feedback to staff on projects relating to walking and biking. Eugene City staff will consider recommendations from the ATC along with input from other members of the public during decision-making processes. Please keep in mind that this meeting is being both recorded and live streamed to YouTube, meaning that it can be viewed on the City of Eugene Transportation Planning YouTube channel, both right now and in the future. The live transcription feature for closed captioning has been enabled, and all verbal and written commentary will be held in the public record. Today we'll begin with our 15-minute public comment period. The public comment period is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the ATC on transportation-related issues. Each person has 3 minutes to speak, and we'll begin with those who are joining us online. So if we have any members online, let me open up the participants window, who would like to join, thank you, I can take that. Please raise your hand. Looks like we've got one person, so I can allow you to talk, and we'll start with Anne.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're coming through.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm at swim lessons, so I'm not on camera. But I just wanted to pop on. I couldn't stay away, so good to see you all. And I just wanted to flag an issue that I know is near and dear to the ATC's heart, and that's detours during construction. And so there's currently a detour that started about a week ago right next to U of O's campus on 13th between Alder and Kincaid. And very well maybe on the city's radar already, but wanted to flag to the ATC. Currently, the detour has the one direction of the bike lane and the pedestrian sidewalk closed off for construction. And the car lane, it's one direction, one car lane, as well as angled back in parking are still open. And what that's resulted in this first week, classes have started back up. There's a lot of pedestrians walking in the one remaining bike lane, and bikes are still going two ways as well. So there seems to be not any space really for the active travelers. It's creating some pretty unsafe travel conditions where people are walking and biking right next to moving cars and backing. The angled parking, there's not very much space for them to be doing that without bumping into or becoming very close at least to the active travelers. So curious if there's alternative ways like maybe closing the parking and giving more space to the bikers and pedestrians, particularly as that results in a 4-block bike detour. And it's the only bike accessible entrance to campus from the west. So just wanted to bring that to your attention, and thanks all.
Thank you, Anne. Good to hear from you. So just to respond to that real quick, we are going to have a little bit of time at the end of the meeting to talk about this more, but that was brought to our attention by Josh. He sent us an email and he was like, why is this happening? We did not know about it, and we actually, Reed has been working with Public Works Maintenance, and we have a solution that's going to be going in soon. And we have the plan, so we can show that to you towards the end of the meeting. But and we have heard about it, we're on it, and we're going to be making adjustments to sort of help remedy the situation. So thank you for your comment. Okay, it doesn't look like the two other folks we have on the meeting are looking to have public comment via Zoom. Is that correct? If you do have public comment, please raise your hand. See, come on in. Okay.
No.
Yeah, hi
Lucy,
Lucy.
you're gonna sit up here.
It's at the table. I got your call, but we were in the middle of the thing. I'm glad you made it in. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to public comment from the folks who are here in the room. I'm gonna start with, it looks like Vicky, is that right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, my name is Vicky Mello, I'm in Ward 4. And I really appreciate all the work you guys are doing. There's a lot of need out there. And I understand it's a complex issue, but I want to bring up again the vehicles that are traveling around town, especially on shared use paths and very narrow areas like on the Third Street Bridge, when I was walking home. This, I would say, a bullet bike was coming right by me, and I had to step to the side, it's going really fast, so I'm sure that there's some plans hopefully to, on the sharing path, especially along the river, to separate walkers from bikers. I mean, it's gonna be hard enough for just mechanical bikes to be able to try and avoid a lot of these faster moving vehicles, but I think it's it just seems like the number of e-devices, especially bikes, the big ones or the hoverboards, are just increasing substantially of what I noticed. And I think I'm kind of a tough person, but even I get fearful at times. And if we want to promote things out of the car, we need to make it really safe for a lot of people, especially adult people that might have things bias when you don't even know what's happening. So I know there's education out there, but it seems like that maybe something has to happen. I don't have a plan, but I know that there's a lot of big minds here, so I'm hoping that can have something in the near future, because it is getting worse. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky.
thanks Vicky for your comment. And Connie.
So I don't know if you're gonna address some of the statistics that came out the last week. About 200.
Pardon, can somebody get the speaker a microphone? It's hard. It's not, the recording is not really coming in. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, if you could speak closer to the owl.
This thing.
Yeah, that might be.
So the statistics that came out in the last week were the 233 pedestrian and bike collisions, and 156 of them pedestrian, 77 were bikes. And then I think we all know in the last several days, it's been a nightmare. And if there's one thing that we want to do as both citizens and as committee members, is to try and how to assuage the fear that people have of walking and biking. And every time we have someone hit there, especially when we have people killed, it just sets us back terribly. And I would also, I'm not being religious here, but I would also like to ask for just a moment of silence for the people who have died, unfortunately, in the last few weeks of pedestrian. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment, Connie. That's definitely hit our team hard too, having that many incidents happening in the last week or two. Okay, we are going to go ahead and move on, and I'll pass the meeting over to the chairs.
Okay, thanks. I'm Sue Wallen, co-chair of the APC, along with Mary, and we will first move on to approving the minutes of the December 2022 meeting. I hope you all had a chance to look them over. Are there any comments or questions? Or I just had one quick thing on the section on the letter that we approved of about HC participation thing. It should actually probably say that we did in fact approve it. It says it's something that, it was seconded, moved to approve it and seconded, but I don't think it says that we did actually. I think we unanimously approved it.
Okay.
So, just for the records. If there aren't any other changes, I'll accept a motion to approve them.
A motion.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay.
I just noticed one typo.
Mm.
I can't recall what that.
Okay.
Yeah, I
It
think,
was like an equal sign.
yeah, I think typos you can probably just send directly to Willow.
Yeah, you
to-
can just
to,
email.
You know, I don't think we need to discuss them. Yeah, because they're frequently are. They're working really fast.
Yeah, if anybody finds typos on the notes, just email me and I can adjust them. Thank you.
Okay, so what was moved and Justin seconded? Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Abstaining?
I'm seeing that.
Yeah, I presume our two members are probably abstaining. Okay, so our first item on the agenda, since we have our four new APC members on board, is we'd like to do a little get to know one another activity. So what we thought is that we'd like you to kind of pair up, ideally with somebody you don't know very well already. And just for a few minutes, just talk a little bit about who you are and why you wanted to be on the APC, what you hope to do. And then after we've done that for a few minutes, then we'll just let you introduce the person you interviewed. So it's just a way to help you get to know one another a little bit and listen to each other, because you got to report back. So and Willow's gonna figure out something. for
Yeah.
Folks who are online.
Yeah, so we've just got Julie and Josh online. So what I'm gonna do is I'll leave the audio and then you two can talk to each other and we won't overhear you. If that works, all right. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave the audio and then I'll turn the audio back on and let you know when we're ready to come back.
So who wants to go first? Okay, let's go for it.
Well, I have the pleasure to introduce to you all Charlotte, who is now part of the ATC and is an environmental psychologist. And her interest really is around, well, first her background, she came from Toronto and Eugene. And she's worked around kind of like the micro stuff in Toronto and as well as your major city, Chicago. And she led some initiatives that really got people out not driving and actually, taking public transportation.
Wow.
After about it, which is pretty cool. Another piece of why she's interested in being part of ATC is that too many people drive cars and she wants to make a change in that way. She actually, in her profession, is working on trying to make transformational change and getting people to collaborate and partner together to kind of do that type of work.
Thanks, Dustin. I was gonna mention to just everybody try to speak loudly just so the microphone can pick us up.
That was such a nice introduction. And no, I did not lead those efforts. I was part of those efforts. So I'd like to introduce Justin, and we just discovered we have a whole bunch of stuff in common. He works for Cascade Mobility.
Sorry.
Cascadia.
Cascade.
And so we had a lot of conversation about how important it is to bring different sectors together in these conversations. So of course, in this case, it's the health community and how important that is to be using active transportation rather than getting in our cars. I've discovered that he lives in a really nice part of town that's fairly bikeable, but it's got a hill. And that's over at Lincoln and near 19th and 20th. And I think we're in Simpatico, so that was really nice.
Okay, why don't we just continue around?
Yeah, I have the opportunity to introduce Daniel. He has been a part of APC for a year now and is originally from Corvallis, Oregon. He lives a car-free lifestyle since ever. He's never had a driver's license and is enthusiastic and loves sharing that with everybody and advocating for it, and wanted to get involved with the ATC so that there's more knowledge on doing those things that he cares about. I think another thing we discussed was, how some cities are slightly better organized for commuting via public transportation or walking and biking. And one of the places he was in was Albuquerque, and that was really it was really difficult to get around. And so there's appreciation for trying to better the infrastructure here.
And this is Lucy. She just joined the ATC and has been Eugene for almost a year. She grew up in Europe and then lived in other places that had really good bike infrastructure and really appreciated not having to be around cars, be in cars and just wasting time in cars. She's been a part of a number of bike advocacy organizations. And am I missing anything big?
This is Michelle. This is Michelle's second year on the ATC. She's the third grade teacher in Junction City. I think you've been teaching 3 years in Junction City.
No, it's the second.
Second year.
Mhm.
And she said this is her hardest year yet with the students, but they're coming around. And I think you enjoy it overall.
Yeah.
She likes to get outside. She loves water. She likes to stay active. And she had 2 elderly dogs and one just recently passed. And then, so she has a 14-year-old Chihuahua. And let's see, she has never been on a committee like this before, so she wants to learn about how this works, and she's passionate about active transportation, although I think you described yourself as sort of a
New.
beginner,
No,
yeah, to active transportation, but she gets it and she's really passionate about it, and it's really great to work with. Yeah.
Okay, this is Mary. And she is a retired teacher and full-time grandma now. She likes to walk and garden. And what did you say, tinker?
Putter,
Putter.
same
putter
difference,
around?
I think, yeah.
Okay. And what drew her to active transportation is that it connects to a lot of things in the world, and she liked the social justice part of that, and just yeah, seeing how everything works together, and how it benefits people, and it's simple and cool. That's what she said. And doesn't own a car, right? Yeah.
Good, going over here.
This is Clarissa. Clarissa is a third year student in the Public Policy Planning and Management program at the U of O. She's a second year ATC member, originally from Portland. Grew up walking to school from the age of 7, biking to school from the age of 12, and really enjoying those aspects of life. Enjoyed doing it and still enjoys doing it with friends, and so kind of promoting that with other people is a big motivation for her to do this work. First city committee membership, I asked what her favorite bike route in Eugene was, and she said in the summertime going around the Riverside Path and taking periodic dips into Willamette on hot days. So, Clarissa is very crafty, utilizes the craft center at the U of O for woodwork. And obviously, you can see likes to make things, skilled with her hands. So, and I think that was it.
Yeah, perfect. This is Jerry. He's a internship coordinator at LCC and works in all sorts of fields with matching students with all sorts of internships and the work before that they have to do to prepare, and keeping in contact with them while they're there and making sure they're succeeding, and then debriefing with them afterwards. He is originally from Ashland, but then came to the Eugene area for school and then left for 10 years, and now he's back raising his family here, and he loves to get outside walking and biking with his kids as well.
So I'm honored to present ESP, and she is a Eugene resident for the last 15 years, so they've also done other things here. And she is a board member of the River Road Association, and so she's been kind of in the middle of all of this interesting change and politics around what's happening up there. We recently bought an electric car, and she's like trying to find charging stations. And but very interested in active transportation, and is a student right now at UO in social sciences, and said that, a class on transportation blew her mind. That really opened her up to all the possibilities, how things have changed, you know, how transportation modes have like really changed our like human development and societal development. Did that- Yeah, I think that's it, right? You were, they were listening in.
This is Andrea. Originally from Oakland, been in Eugene for about 4 years. And been here on ACC for 3 years.
I think I'm the oldest member now.
We started at the same time.
We did.
All right, and she has 5 dogs. Just kidding. We had a very engaging conversation about bike path safety. I look forward to it.
Cool. Okay, I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
I was kind of the third person in on their group, so, and they had, so anyway, I think you all kind of know me. I've been a bike advocate in Eugene since I moved here in 1988. And when I first came here, it's like, wow, this is such a bike-friendly city. And now they've built lots of new stuff and better things, and it's somehow it doesn't feel as bike-friendly as it did when I moved here, which is a little disturbing. But anyway, but we can do it. We can do it. This should be a very bikeable city. It's getting there, but it's a hard battle.
Say, Sue, can I do it? So that's Sue Walling. And if you follow urban planning, Jane Jacobs, she is what we call a zealous nut. She's very instrumental in telling us about what's happening in the environment for walking and bicycling. She has a brown Trek 520, which I see here on all over Lake County. If we're in the forest reaches of Lake County, Sue will be there, and she will just pop up and Sue will be there. Sue was also on the Sustainability Commission for a long time. You were a trauma nurse, and I think you recently retired. Are you retired now? So she can never go to these meetings because these occur on Thursdays, and I think you had to work. So when you retired, we knew it because we got an application from Sue. One of the other active transportation. So welcome, Sue.
okay, we'd love to hear from Julie and Josh.
Okay, Josh, go ahead.
So this is Julie. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Julie. This is her 4th year on the ATC, and she enjoys biking, busing, and walking. And so she's really passionate about children, especially in schools in the 4J district, getting them out of cars and having them being able to walk or bike or basically be self-sufficient getting to school. She used to work for an environmental nonprofit, and so she started bike commuting at what she considers an older age, but and she was motivating her coworkers to walk the walk by biking as well. And so she's been pretty instrumental, I believe, in last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, working with 4J schools, I think with Mary, if my memory serves. So that's Julie.
And I don't think you're going to be able to, you can't hear me, right?
No, we can hear you. Yeah, you're coming through great. Oh, but now you're now you're muted. So go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay. Oh,
and now we can hear you.
That's amazing because this computer has never ever worked with the mic. It's a replacement laptop. So there we have it. Anyway, so yes, Josh, I'm just so thrilled this works. Josh bikes and walks and buses everywhere. He doesn't own a car. He really values being an example to the community about how you can get around without having a car. He's an engineer at the U of O. He's in his third year here at the ATC. And, one of his motivations for joining was the number of, should we say, interactions he had with cars involving bike car crashes. So safety and, a bikeable community is extremely important to him, and helping keep people safer. The other thing that that Josh is, really interested in is having a community that really values place rather than thoroughfare, so that our streets are places that we use, that they're public, they're public space for all of us, and not just a thoroughfare for cars. And so it was really fun to talk with Josh.
Likewise, Julie.
Awesome.
And if Reed says you see me all over on my brown trek, you'll see Josh all over the place on his enormous unicycle, and he is amazing on that.
Or on rollerblades, or
Yeah.
on, I don't know, he travels every which way.
Yeah, but I never thought you could ride a unicycle for like an 80-mile ride, but he does it. And he passes us going up the hills.
I was hoping we could use the last 5 minutes to have the folks over here introduce themselves. I know we didn't have to like talk to each other, but especially for the new ATC members, we've got some of our staff over here as well as involved community members. So just a quick blurb about who you are.
Hi, I'm Logan Ellis. I'm a transportation planner with the city. I do a few different things. The most relevant ATC is I run our Vision Zero program, which is all about reducing the occurrence of fatal and severe injury collisions. I also do our EV strategies. I can talk about EVs, e-bikes, stuff like that. And our traffic calming program as well, which is all about slowing vehicle speeds.
What do you like to do?
What do I like to do in my free time?
Yeah.
I go hiking, I go biking, I go camping, stuff like that.
Hi, I'm Alan Hancock, and I am an ATC alumni. This is the first time on this side of the room in quite a while. And you will get to see me pretty frequently. And I am passionate about gardening, especially about unusual fruits.
I'm Brett Jones. I manage and supervise the signals and streetlights under the direction of our traffic engineer, Chris Henry. I enjoy outdoors. I commuted for my first 5 years at the city of Eugene by bike, and it was stolen. And I have not replaced it yet because I'm deciding between actually exercising and being bike. Hey folks, I'm Reed Dunbar. I'm a transportation planner. Willow Logan and I are on the same team. We're on transportation planning team, which is in public works engineering. I work on walking and biking projects. So I work with our design engineers to design stuff. And when things go wrong, like they are on 13th Avenue, I make a lot of phone calls and I say, what are we doing out there? And we work on solutions to try to resolve that. And a resolution is coming soon. When I'm not doing that, I'm discovering things. So I like to walk places, bike places. I like to go to parks, all sorts of things. Yeah. It's your turn.
Yeah, well, I'm Vicky and I bike and walk everywhere and I love the LTE. That way I can get to West 11th a lot quicker than if I was biking out there. I am a member of the Systems Planning Committee for the Lillooet Natural Area of Alton-Baker Park. And this is my last year. I'm going to turn limit off there. I'm actually chair. And that I really enjoy the Lillooet Natural Area. It's a really unique situation over there. I think it's pretty cool. It's between two governmental jurisdictions, so it's kind of challenging for the community to be able to figure out how to do stuff on either side. But it's a great place to visit the Talking Stones, and biking is probably the best way to get there unless you like to walk, because it has some really good trails and you can get your number of steps in time. And that's what I really enjoy.
I'm Connie Berland. I'm a member of the Hilltop neighborhood. That's for historical perspective. I was a member of the bike committee way back in the 80s and 90s.
Wow.
So I was a member of that for 15 or more years. I'm not sure how many. So that's way back. And I have been trying to advocate for bike and transport and pedestrian safety and rights and all that for decades. So I've been here since the 70s.
Yay! Oh, me. Okay, My name is Willow Hamilton. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for the City of Eugene and the Staff Liaison for the Active Transportation Committee. So those are kind of my two main roles.
What do you like to do?
Oh, what do I like to do? I like to go skiing this time of year, and I like to go canoeing when it's nice out. And I also love gardening and petting my cat.
Time to hear from Bryce or?
Yeah, Bryce, if you're there and you can hear us, we'd love to get an intro from you as well. Also, it's okay if not.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
Hello?
Hello.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay. Sorry, I'm having all kinds of weird problems here and bad internet and all that. Let's see, where are we? Introductions, I guess. Yeah, I'm with BPAC, the Springfield equivalent of you guys, I guess. Been doing that for about a year and a half, I think. I think I've been the liaison for that time too. What else was there in this?
What do you like to do?
Oh, right. Well, at the moment, I am building my new shop for my woodworking business. That's a cross of what I like to do and what I have to do, I guess. I also am a pretty big gardener. Of course, well, cycling is kind of a given, I would say, in this group. A lot of gardening, kayaking, a lot of outdoorsy stuff, camping, that kind of thing. Big surprise in this area. I definitely am a big fan of the bike path, especially the one in Eugene. So I've spent a fair amount of time there. My wife and I, some of you might know Robin, we have a tandem, so we bike around on that a fair amount. And this summer, we're hoping to bike up to Portland as kind of a overnight long trip kind of thing.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody. It's good to hear from you. We even finished on time. How about that? Okay. So the next thing on the agenda is reading Willow on the Pearl Street lane changes. And just by way of background, the ATC got involved in Pearl Street last year when there was some talk that after the High Street protected bikeway goes in, which should happen this coming year, that maybe there wouldn't be a need for the bike lane on Pearl Street since it's had some issues over the years and it's got some crashes and stuff on it. And the ATC kind of strongly said, no, don't even think about it. And we gave a lot of reasons. So we're happy to hear that they listen. So that's great to hear. So it's
In a nutshell, that's it. So pre-pandemic, around 2019, we started a process called Central Eugene in Motion. And what that looked at is how we're gonna encourage active transportation trips to and through our downtown. And our long-range 20-year plan, called the Transportation System Plan, or TSP, says we should have a series of protected bike lanes that connect to our shared use path network along the river, Amazon Path, Fern Ridge Path, and those should connect right into our downtown at the places where people want to be, like the downtown library, should go all the way to campus. That sort of a network would really encourage people who are sort of interested in biking, but sort of feel, so about riding in mixed traffic that, hey, I can do this. This feels like a good transportation option for me. So we selected a couple of streets during that process, including High Street, which has been on the menu for a while. And so High Street will this year, get a two-way protected bikeway from 19th Avenue, so the end of the Amazon Path, and then all the way up to 6th Avenue. It will go further to 4th Avenue eventually as part of the Railroad Quiet Zone project that will install some quad gates there and make the train horns unnecessary. We may still get some train horns, but we may not. So that would be good. And then we'll have protected bike lanes all the way up to 4th Avenue and then all the way down to 19th. There will also be protected bike lanes on 8th Avenue that will connect directly into High Street and then go right down what is basically our Civic Street. Eventually, we will have a city hall there, I'm told. We have our Lane County courthouse is there. We just built a great farmers market. Our park blocks are there. And there's a lot of cool destinations, and you can get to some places off of 8th Avenue. And so it's also a really good connection. It connects to the courthouse district which then goes over to our new Riverfront Park area. And so that's the network that we have been envisioning. And as part of those conversations, we started looking at redundancy in the system. And Pearl High is a one-way pair. So High Street is a one-way street going northbound, Pearl is a one-way going southbound. And we have a bike lane on the northbound route and a bike lane on the southbound route. So what we're gonna do with the two-way bikeways, we're gonna put a northbound and a southbound on just one of those streets. And so the question was, do we still need a southbound one? And most of us are like, well, yeah, there's stuff on Pearl that I want to get to. The problem with Pearl Street is it has about 50% more bike crashes than High Street does. Don't know why. And so we looked at some different interventions for Pearl Street. We got support from the ATC that said, hey, please, let's save this. This was under discussion. Like, we have a pavement project coming up this year that is going to remove the pavement. When the pavement goes away, so does the striping. When we put the pavement back, we can put new striping back. The question was, do we put the bike lane back with the new pavement? And I can tell you as of today, the answer is yes. We put the bike lane back, but we put it on the other side of the street. So one of the unique things about Pearl Street is that it's a left side bike lane. And the reason that we did that is because there are bus stops over here. And at one point with this two-way pair, we thought, well, the best thing for bicycling traffic and keeping them moving would be to not mix buses and bikes together on the west side of Pearl, or, you know, in the right-hand space. There aren't a lot of conflicts that actually happen. For most folks who ride down Pearl Street, I would wager you don't encounter a bus very often. I don't, I take it every day. And one of the issues that we have with this left side bike lane is predictability. Pearl and High are only left side bike lanes in the entire system. And so they are less predictable. And we think that is a large part of why we have more crashes on Pearl and High. And when they occur, people say, why, oh, why you guys have a bike lane on the wrong side of the street? And so most of what happens is somebody will drive a car across, somebody traveling in here, and then that creates a crash. That is confusing to me because with the left side bike lane, a driver drives on the left side of their car. A bike is literally like right here, but people don't see that and they're not looking for them. And I don't know why. But so what we said, so what we're going to do instead, Mr. Eraser, is we're going to go ahead and move this over to the side where it probably should have been to begin with, which is over on the west side. And we can do that because there are things like parking that exist on this side. We can simply swap them over to the other side because we're taking all that pavement out, taking all that striping out, and when we put it back, we can move it and we can swap it. So this summer between Broadway and 17th Avenue, we will be getting new pavement on Pearl Street, and we will be swapping the bike lane over. We're also working internally with staff to make sure that between 6th and Broadway, we also move the bike lane over to the west side. There are some traffic meters on that west side. In the long term, the city wants to move away from coin-operated meters and use pay stations. They're much more affordable. People seem to get them. And so ideally what happens is we take out the those parking meters as well and put pay stations on this side where the parking can be. One of the benefits of doing that is we will get more spaces, on-street parking spaces. Not talking to the group that would care about that as much, but if we put parking over on where the bike lane is now, because there aren't conflicts with bus stops. Bus stops require no parking so that the bus can get curbside. And so when you remove, or when you put the bike lane in that same space and then put parking on the other side, we get a bunch more spaces actually. So that's happening. And so that is in no small part because the ATC and because people who were vigilant when they heard that this was happening, and because we have some decision makers who understand that people are used to traveling in certain routes. There are certain destinations that are important to people, and that we could do something relatively simple that will probably achieve our safety goals for the corridor. For folks who still don't feel comfortable traveling on Pearl, we will have a two-way protected bikeway, 1 block away, and that will work for you in both directions. So this is the proposal. Go ahead.
Quick and easy question. Which side of the street is the high protected byway, the bikeway gonna be on?
It's on the west side, so the right side. Sorry, left side.
West side, west.
Well, it depends on which direction you go.
It's like similar to the 13th Avenue one where it's on the
Going
left. and the
Northbound on
traffic is-
High, because High is northbound, it is going to be on the west, which is the left.
Okay.
Left side.
Yeah.
I'm curious why you're not doing what you did on Alder and use the parking as a protected lane. Do you have a reason for that?
Compliance. It's really hard to get people to observe. Parking not next to the curb. And we've tried that in a couple spaces, most recently Willamette Street south of 18th. Not going great. Some people get it, some people don't. We've had a lot of confusion about it. One could say, well, if you build more of them, people will get it. I think you have to protect those spaces, and then our issue becomes street sweeping, because bike lanes are not as wide as street sweepers are. And even though we have a narrow street sweeper, it can't be everywhere all the time, and it doesn't carry a lot of capacity. The hopper is very small. So we've got some challenges that we need to figure out in the future, but we thought about that for a second. And then we said, you know what, let's do this first. Again, you hear me say this all the time, but think of the city as an urban laboratory where we can experiment with things and then we can sort of change them in the future. And once we reserve that space and move everything to the west side, we can go ahead and move parking back to that side in the future if we want to. We could do that. But phase one is simply going to be to put parking on the other side and have parking and have the bike lane on the other side.
That makes sense. Thanks.
And Willow has been going door to door and talking with folks about this. And I don't know if you have any cool ideas to share, or some folks were excited, I think.
Yeah, the few people who bike that I talked to were like, great, the left side is so weird. Why am I over here? And then a lot of people I talked to who drove were also like, I never know what's going on with the bikers because it's on a weird side of the street. So most of the people I talked to seemed pretty open to it. So that was good. The businesses are, relatively open to it. I think one of the things we want to talk with ATC about was the 13th intersection. Like, what do we want? Like, what's our plan? Because I don't think we have figured that out yet, Reed. Is that right? And maybe the ATC can give us some feedback.
I know you guys all follow signals and all of that stuff. So probably doesn't matter to you guys, but on 13th, got a two-way protected bikeway up here. And right now, the bike lane sort of comes down here on Pearl Street. And so we've got a bike signal here. And the reason that we have that here is for folks that want to go this way. All of the signals in our all ages and abilities bikeways are protected bike lanes. All other traffic stops when you get a bike signal. You can go any direction you want to. Some folks like that, some folks are, I think, getting used to it. But for right now, the decision is let's make it as safe as it can possibly be. And so this is the condition. Now, when we move that to the other side, you would potentially have that same issue here with this bike going across traffic. But what I've learned is that people are not necessarily stopping here. And I think what folks would rather do is we'll put a two-stage turn box in here, which will allow this person to ride down here, get into this space, and then basically do a two-stage turn. It's about the same time, and we don't have to do a bike signal at all. Actually, I propose to take that out. Brett, I hope that's not the first time you're hearing that, but I would like to take it out. And so, I think that will work fine. We have this same treatment on Willamette at 13. So you make a two-stage crossing from there to there over versus waiting for the green and then making the movement. Yeah.
Is there any reason you wouldn't do the protected green boxes in front of where the cars stop? Like, there's one of those near, is it 7?
The bike box.
We
Yeah.
could do a bike box. There,
I was also thinking about that on 19th and Pearl as well, because turning
I have
left,
a bike box on 19.
right, but when the bike lane changes sides, that'll stay there, and so you can still make that left turn on the.
So south of 16th on Pearl, there are bike lanes on both sides of Pearl. For some reason. So that doesn't change at all.
Okay.
So what this does is it allows. Basically, if you put a bike box here, you have to wait for the signal the same way you would have to wait for a bike signal, because otherwise you're still turning against traffic. So the better place to be is not in front of cars and try to get into that space. It's to be over here out of this flow. So this is a little bit better solution. It's less green colorant and therefore less money and less maintenance. And we already have cameras here to detect that direction. So this is probably better, a couple wins here versus a big old bike box, which again, compliance on bike boxes is okay. It's not great.
Compliance meaning the cars.
People drive into
using
it.
those. Okay.
They're supposed to wait behind them.
Yeah.
And this would this remedy like the cyclists running a red light when they're going southbound? They'll just go southbound with the cars. There'll be no, they won't have to
Most of
stop
what
and
people
wait.
Want to do
Yeah,
and what they're used to doing, and along the entire rest of the Pearl Street corridor.
is
That's
what they're
how it
gonna be
is.
doing. Yeah.
So this will be just like that. And if you want to get into the protected bikeway, two-stage movement, which is pretty similar to the way that they do it in a lot of cities, based on best practice from like Europe and some other emerging engineering methods.
The confident cyclist could also just merge into the
Absolutely.
driving
You can
lane
get
and
out
then
of this bike
turn.
lane anytime you want. If you
Yeah.
want to turn right, you can back there, go boop, boop, and then just turn right. Yep. Or you can wait.
That's nice that that has two options for people who are like want the safety and then also people who are like, I don't wanna wait, I wanna be able to go as soon as.
Yeah, right now there isn't two options. You
Yeah.
you observe the signal or you don't. Yes, you do have two options.
Going back to Daniel touched on 19th. So when you get down, if you're on the right side of Pearl and you want to turn left on 19th,
Yeah,
you have to merge over.
there is a bike box
box,
there.
yeah.
Oh, there is.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's hard to envision for people who do it now because typically we're going on the left-hand side.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
I
I do
can't
that,
even
but
envision, and I do that really regularly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's there.
okay. I can do that.
Yeah.
And I think, so, I don't know how we're doing on time.
I think we're over time.
Okay, so stay tuned on Pearl, because I don't think we're done with it yet. Amazon Parkway turns into Pearl at 19. And then it's Pearl all the way to downtown. But eventually Amazon Parkway could go to 18th. And if that was two-way, then we increased a lot more functionality and reintroduced the grid for a whole nother block into one of our major arterials at 18th Avenue. So I will come back with a traffic study when that is done.
And if folks, I know we're kind of out of time, but if folks do have like additional thoughts or you're at home making dinner and you think of something for Pearl, you're always welcome to email us. Like at any
Yeah.
time, you can just be like, oh, I was thinking I have a question about this, or I had this thought about Pearl. Just let us know and send
But
us. an
this is
email.
our last ATC time to weigh in on it.
I don't think so.
I
I
don't
mean,
know
we
what the
could,
timing is
yeah,
for
we
it.
could certainly talk about it at the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
meeting
Yeah,
if
the
people
same
have
summer.
more.
What is the
so-
timing for construction?
Yeah.
Are you asking?
Or design.
This year? I don't know how to predict when things are gonna get bid and constructed.
Mhm.
We don't know.
This
So
summer,
we
maybe
try.
next
So
summer.
we should get input. If we have input, we should give it ASAP, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Reed. That's great. I can't wait to see that signal go away. I sometimes do stop at it, but I feel very virtuous if I do. Okay, so we have a little 5-minute break here.
Yeah.
And we'll be back.
Stretch our legs. So there's snakes. The bathroom has a code. So it's a little sticky note right up there, kind of near the clock if you need to use the bathroom. There is. Yeah.
I always feel like we always say, you know, you guys are great. And then there's like this part, and then you have to like. So how is it going?
The next thing on our agenda is leading pedestrian intervals, which some of you may not even know what in the world that is, so we'll find out.
We'll find out. So I think Reed and Brett and also Logan, if you all want to maybe come to the table just so you're closer to the mic. I might even, Clarissa, do you think you could scoot the mic like towards
And it's gonna
them?
be very clear to all of you what a leading pedestrian interval is in about 5 minutes.
That's as far as I want to go, I think.
Green light. Green light? We can go? We can all go?
Yeah. I think, isn't it?
Green light walk signal, we can all go?
Good looking.
If we're a pedestrian, do we go? We're not supposed to. So what a leading pedestrian interval does, so this is usually the condition. All traffic starts and goes. And what the problem is what I demonstrated with like this right hook over here is that we would have a pedestrian here, they start to cross the street, and then a car comes and hits them. And that's what this is saying. Go ahead and move. Everybody can move. So these people who are turning across a crosswalk. Don't go. Everybody stop. What does this one mean? So now we have people walking, but nobody driving and turning across the crosswalk. So this interval of pedestrian movement comes before the green. To get people out into the crosswalk and potentially past the point of conflict where somebody on a green light would otherwise hit them. That's the whole intention of a leading pedestrian interval. Get them out and clear of that right turn lane before this. That's the whole deal. And normally we do that when I was talking to Brett before the meeting. So it's like, when do we decide? We decide when we get a lot of phone calls or when Logan is looking at data and we're looking at mitigations for complaints, and hopefully nobody's been hit yet. But I think we've all been there where you start walking out and you think there's a car behind you, and you kind of turn around and yes, there's a car there. So what we teach in Safe Routes to School now is left, right, left, behind, so that we know if there's a car coming to get us or not. So this definitely takes care of us having to go find out if there's a car coming to get us, although good practice would be, let's still see if somebody's there and if they're paying attention. And we get a lot of calls like that from in locations where there's a heavy right turn movement, because those people are raring to go. And especially if that street is an arterial street that carries lots of traffic, and people feel like in their cars, if they're turning right, that they have to sort of jump in, like jump rope to like get their space in traffic. They don't ever turn right at all to see if there's a pedestrian at the crosswalk. Always looking left, there's a gap, I'm gonna go. Well, in the meantime, the light has turned green, the crosswalk has come on, pedestrians are in the crosswalk, all of that has happened. So sometimes I could have also printed up a no turn on red sign that would prevent that person from the option of on a red signal turning right into that crosswalk because they're only looking left. And sometimes we do that too, but we look at data, we hear from people, and we figure out what the intersection will support in terms of the overall signal cycle, all of the different movements that have to happen to clear that intersection out. Additions?
If there's questions.
I have one. The no turning on red. I notice a lot of people turning left onto one ways. And so is there anything that this can do to help that with when it's okay for people to cross the street?
So at 13th, we've implemented no turn on red for that reason, because it is a one-way and illegal move. To turn from a two-way even onto a one-way. And so for the protection of the bikeway along the 13th corridor, I think it's.
So 13th and high, like when that big red arrow comes up with the big line through it that says don't turn now, and it's illuminated and you can see it from blocks away, that's to prevent the hooking.
Super excited learning about this at the orientation meeting a couple of weeks ago. I walk my kids to school daily. We encounter this so much, and I taught my kids the same thing. I didn't know about the Safe Routes to School thing, but I've taught them you always look behind you when you cross because the cars are going to turn. We've had so many close calls. But yeah, it's the Amazon Parkway and 29th on the south side in particular. It's just a high right turn route, people going up over in 30th, and that's one area. And then now that the Camas Ridge Swim School has switched to the other side now, so you're not going through Amazon Park, instead you're going across Willamette Street, all four sides, north and south of 29th, but is particularly bad for right turns. It's just extremely busy, and so those were two areas I thought of. But I'm just thrilled for the city that this is going to happen for some of
I
those.
think we have an LPI on the landing thing.
Southbound, when that there is.
Yeah.
We've tried to implement them along Safe Routes corridors, anywhere.
Transit
close to
routes where
schools.
there's a lot of folks. walking to the bus. There's, I guess, and I asked Brett this earlier, it's like, why don't we have them everywhere then? This seems like such a no-brainer. And the reality is some signal cycles are too short and they have to turn over a little bit faster. And so this takes a little bit of time from that. But that's not the bigger issue. The bigger issue is that we only do these leading pedestrian intervals where we have a push button for the pedestrian signal, because then we know that there's a pedestrian. If they just came up automatically, then there would always be a pedestrian phase, whether or not there was a pedestrian present.
That's a good idea.
And we have that people will get used to that, the no pedestrian present thing, and say, well, these don't really matter as much anymore, and I can continue the behavior that was dangerous for everybody. And so the push button actuation, and I think eventually we'd like to have those everywhere. Yeah. Gonna take a while for us to be able to upgrade our entire system to that.
So I had a question actually about that one that's coming at the moment. So I did notice it, and I was curious about how long the interval is. So typically it's supposed to be between 3 and 7 seconds. And what I did read too is that typically it would be almost getting into the lane and like almost to one lane. Like
So right now we've implemented a minimum 3 seconds. So 3 to 4 feet per second, you should be 10 to 12 feet into the intersection, which is typically close to being crossed that one lane. Now the LPI, you've got to remember, it's built in for the right hook, but if you're coming from the other direction in that same crosswalk, you're actually getting closer to that right turner as you walk. And what we've seen is, in a lot of places, Oakway, Young is one. The people taking the left across there, we have an LPI there. They are racing as fast as they can as the pedestrian is walking to make it by them. Even though they've already started and they've got a 3-second start. Cars, unfortunately, are doing all they can to make that northbound left before the pedestrian gets to that lane. And so that one part to engineer out without making it a pedestrian only move.
I was gonna notice we have Julie who has had her hand
Oh,
raised for a
sorry,
minute online.
I had a question for Reed, following up on, I'm sorry, I didn't get our new ATC committee member's name, but the person that talked about the intersection at 29th and Amazon Parkway, because I use that a lot too. And one of the things that I've noticed, I mean, it is unbelievable. They turn right into the traffic when you're, right into the pedestrian lane all the time. But that signal has a right arrow turn on it. It also has a right arrow turn. People routinely go around that when it's red. Even with the walk signal, it's got a red arrow and they go right across it. Can we just take that arrow off and make it a red light? Because they seem to think the arrow means they can go whether it's red or green. I mean, it's stunning.
By law, a red arrow means they should be stopping before.
I know, but they really don't. I mean, because I ride that several times. I have a garden plot at Amazon Community Garden, so I go there sometimes twice a day to go get dinner and ride back. And the number of times that I've given the stink eye to motorists that come through that red turn arrow. I mean, I should get an award for the stink eye, but I just like to get rid of that red arrow.
Engineering interventions and things that we can design into the system if people comply. When people don't comply, that's an enforcement issue. And we're thinking about things that we can do to enforce things like red light running. I don't know if you guys are ready to talk about that or you want to talk about it a little bit, but.
Sure, yeah, I mean, we are looking into getting an automated enforcement program off the ground that would cover red light running behavior. The thing with a program like that is, to be to implement them, it's not going to be at every intersection, so we would have to strategically pick where we see the most red light running behavior, where the data says the most risk is. But that's something that could potentially help in certain locations.
So this would be like what they have in Europe, sin bins, where it takes a picture and sends you a ticket.
Yeah, so there would be an
online. Oh yeah.
Submit the citation directly to the owner of the vehicle.
So-
Bicycles as well?
No, we can't identify bicycles, you know, there's no like.
If you want to pay a registration fee and put a license plate on your back.
The reason this came up is because Andrea went, where'd you go, Andrea? Oakland, and said, why, this is really cool. They have these leading pedestrian intervals, and we knew we had some, but we didn't know how many, so we wanted to hear about that. And we wanted to hear what the plan was to put more in, and we wanted to hear how safe they were, if there's data about that, to make sure that we're advocating for the right thing, even though they feel intuitively safe. And so I want to know, is this something we should be advocating for? Like, what's the, would it help for us to say, do as much as you can, as fast as you can, if they are safe and, statistically and all that kind of thing?
Or
Or,
respond to that, and then I think Brett can too. So there are certain things in engineering where we have to have warrants and we have to count cars, and there's some math involved. And we don't just do things to see if it'll work, generally speaking. And so this is one where, on a complaint basis, if we figure out how many pedestrians are there, if we figure out how many close calls exist, all of those conditions are met. We've observed it needs something. We'll definitely do an LPI or consider an LPI. But I think they don't just go everywhere. We have concerns about that, about maintaining that, about, if our driving public gets inured to that system and starts to ignore it. Those sorts of concerns exist, but I think it's a tool in the toolbox, and I think where we've done it adjacent to schools especially, I think it has been effective.
Yeah, and on the data side of things, I'll say, with any type of transportation intervention, you're gonna find a lot of different studies citing a lot of different, what we call crash reduction factors. So basically a percentage reduction in crashes that municipality should expect. When it comes to leading pedestrian intervals, I most often look at Federal Highway Administration's what they cite as the crash reduction factor. And they're citing a 13% reduction in pedestrian crashes at locations where something like this is implemented. So it does make.
But that's not the same as close calls.
Which
can also be.
That's not the same as close calls. And we also, a caveat I always throw on is we know that pedestrian crashes are underreported. So, pedestrian data like that can sometimes, take it with a grain of salt.
Reed, I thought you said that eventually they would be at all push button places.
We would have the capability to put them everywhere. Right now, we would not put them if there's not also a push button for the pet center.
But if there is a push button, is the plan to get them in all the push button
Then
places?
they are eligible.
They're eligible, but there's no plan in place to have that. It depends on crash data, et cetera.
Right at the moment, we have not implemented a
Okay.
citywide actuated LPI.
Well, we might, I don't know, so it might be something we want to look at as far as advocating for that.
So this might be off topic, Willow 16, but I'm wondering about this push buttons, because there's so many places in the city where I went across the street, 6 and 7 comes from my grade, and there are no pedestrian push buttons. If I were queen of the world, they would be all over the city.
So 6th and 7th, the downtown core, 11th, basically the heart of the city is our old infrastructure. It literally started by working on a mechanical clock that picked around, and that's how you got your greens and red. The system is still the same in the sense that there's no detection for pedestrians or vehicles. So there's no way to, that's why on 6th and 7th in the downtown core, there will be nobody driving in front of you on 6th. But you've got to wait a certain amount of time before you get the walk. And that's just because we have no way to detect it. So it has to be fixed time, so to speak. And that's where delay comes in, especially in off-peak hours.
And how much budget do we get for the whole city for traffic signals?
For signal infrastructure, we get $80,000 a year for me.
And in traffic, and if you were going to build an intersection with traffic signals, how much would that cost?
Right now, the bids for a new traffic signal at an intersection fully actuated is $450,000.
So we spend most of that $80,000 going around and chasing things that people have hit with their cars or that is broken for some other reason. And so we are reliant upon projects like West MX that are rebuilding corridors and rebuilding signals so that we can upgrade our controller cabinets and upgrade our signals during projects like that. Big portion of the cost on 13th Avenue in the bikeway was we rebuilt all of the signals there as well, because they needed to accommodate the new bike signals, because the old ones would not do that. So we are opportunistic about replacing our signals and making sure that they are the new infrastructure that allows us to do cool stuff. But they are really expensive, and we do not have a dedicated source of funding to do that.
Josh,
It
do you
looks
have a
like Josh's
question?
hand is up. Julie, is your hand still up? Or you?
Yeah, I might have missed some of that there, but regarding the push, the push buttons there for the pedestrian phase, are there going to be plans for default phases for pedestrians as well? So, for instance, on 13th, if there's nobody at the intersection, it usually defaults to a green for cars along 13th. Will there be that same default phase for a pedestrian once these buttons get placed in?
So 13th Avenue right now, the decision was to try to basically advocate for bicycles. So we've given them 2 opportunities through what we call a cycle of the signal. And it's also set on what we call first come, first serve. So when nobody's there, the signal will rest in all directions red. The first person that walks up, be it a bike, a car, or a pedestrian, if nobody else is there, you will be served immediately. On pre-time signals, you have no choice, you sit and wait, but we've chosen on 13th to try to make it first come, first served. I drive through it quite a bit, early morning, later in the evening. I never have to stop. It's clunky during peak times, obviously, because there's more demand. We're looking at seeing if we can possibly change those peak times up a little. But once you do that, there's the possibility of you waiting with nobody there. Once you go
Heads on recall on Willamette.
on Willamette at
The south end. Would those go to recall?
which
Sorry, I thought that was a good example. We had talked about on Willamette Street, I think we had the same issue where we put in some new signals. And if you're walking there, you have to push the button to get the walk signal. And there was already a car up there requesting the green change. And the green happens, sometimes you get the walk and sometimes you don't. And so the request was, can we just make the walk come up every time? And I think Willamette has less going on than 13th does because of the separate bike phase on 13th. So there are corridors, I think, where we could recall a walk signal, and there are corridors where we can't. And I think it would be really challenging on 13th. Right?
well, I mean, we could recall it, but you're gonna basically, when you call a pedestrian phase, whether a pedestrian there is there or not, it's required to have 7 seconds minimum of walk, and then 3.5 seconds, or 3.5 feet per second for your flashing don't walk. So if you recall that every time, if you drive up on a bike or a car or even the opposite ped, and nobody's using that intersection, you're still gonna wait for that required 22 seconds before you can do it. If we put it on recall and it comes up every time. That's basically what you feel in the downtown core. Nobody can be there, but once northbound comes up, you're gonna wait there. In the downtown, it's a 72-second cycle. If you walk up, cross street comes up right when you get there, you have no choice, but you're gonna wait for 35 seconds.
And again, that's old infrastructure. All of that is timed. So those signals go at a time that they're programmed to go at, regardless of somebody's there or not. Over time, we want a more intelligent transportation system where those signals talk to each other and can predict if traffic is coming or not, and they can respond accordingly. That's that big chunk of money that we don't have yet, so that our signals can do that. Some of our signals have that functionality, our newest ones do, but most of them don't.
It's the downtown core.
is dumb.
Yeah. It is, that's the best way, so, except for 6, 8, 7, everything from 19 to 7, and I want to say Patterson, no, Hilliard to, I think, Jefferson. It all runs on 72 seconds all day long. So you get 36 seconds for one way and 36 seconds for the other. And it just goes around in a circle 24/7.
I want to make a comment about 13, since we were talking about that earlier. I traveled down that and noticed that on some parts of 13, like from more the western part of the town, that the bike lane is on the right side and then that transfers over to the left side. Is there any plan for reasoning why that occurs? Or one suggestion we've made on this diagram was putting a bike box to transfer over, so curious if that.
So when we have a two-way bikeway, we put folks. We like to put these on the left side of the street. So that cars traveling in this direction and bikes traveling in this direction are moving in the same direction. That decreases the amount of friction. Those people aren't staring at headlights. All of those conditions are met. And so that's why we switched 13th Avenue over to the north side of 13th. We did that at Lincoln where we put a giant bump in, which is our best bump in the whole city. And the whole point of that was to slow cars down so that folks could get from the bike lane over into the two-way protected. If what you're saying is that still doesn't feel comfortable, then we've heard that and there's probably some more that we could do there.
Yeah, I think especially biking at night, like I don't see it.
Yeah.
So maybe like dash lines, so make the cyclists aware that.
That's also a 20-mile-per-hour speed zone, and do you think people are going 20 there? No. So we could use some more cameras too.
Okay, thank you. We're kind of over time on this, so thank you. And now, all you guys, when people complain about how unsafe it is to walk, you can at least point out that the city is trying. We're doing these legal pedestrian. I probably haven't noticed them, but they're there.
I'd like the ATC to get more, have more like resolutions and things. So I would like to see us bring this back to the next agenda and say, do we want to, make a statement, a strong statement about leading pedestrian intervals? Because why not? Taking more stands on issues, I think would be a powerful way to be as an ATC. So we bring that to the next,
You're chairing the meeting.
okay.
Let me,
Okay, the next item is bond engagement. the phase
Okay.
bond engagement.
yeah, I've got, oh boy. Okay. I've got a quick presentation. I think ideally I wanted to get a little bit of feedback from you all on this, but because we're running behind schedule, I don't know if I'll have time to do that. So maybe tonight I can sort of introduce what we're talking about. And then at the next meeting, similar to the LPIs, we could have a little bit more discussion. The folks online, are you seeing the presentation? Okay, cool. So on the agenda, this was entitled Bond Measure Project Identification Engagement Plan. We have since making the agenda given it a name so that we don't have to say Bond Measure Project Identification. We're calling it Move Huge. Move Huge is also the name of the strategic plan for active transportation. So we're kind of couching those two things together. Envisioning our transportation future is our placeholder tagline. We're not totally sure that that's a good tagline. So if anyone has some amazing idea for a great tagline for this Move Huge campaign, please email it to me. Okay, Move Huge has got two parts. The first piece is that we're going to talk to the community about infrastructure ideas. This is the bond measure component of Move Huge. We have $15 million that the voters of Eugene have given us through the bond measure this November to spend over 5 years. And we are looking to the community to help us identify projects. We're going to get $200 million dollars worth of ideas, right? So we're going to eventually have to figure out what do we prioritize, but the first step is just getting those ideas. We're planning to do that through an interactive online map. So folks can put pins, and then other community members can put comments, and we can upvote things and really try to get a sense of like, are there hot spots or main places that the communities really like? An intervention here would be really helpful. We're also going to have paper maps at in-person events, and we're going to do a variety of in-person events as well. The other piece of Move Huge is the program side. So building infrastructure is great, but there's also all these other things that we can do to encourage active transportation. So we'll also be talking to the community about ideas for programs to incentivize active transportation and have open-ended conversations with people, just asking the question, how can we make it better? We're not totally sure how we're going to get feedback for that yet, as far as an online option goes. So maybe we'll run an online survey, maybe we'll do a comment form, something like that. So that's something that we're still figuring out. We're still figuring out all of this. So if any of this lands with you and you're like, oh, maybe you should do this, or I have an idea for this, that's the stuff that we want to know about, because we're just at the beginning stages right now trying to plan how do we do engagement. So that's what we're bringing to you today, is how do we do engagement? Do you have ideas to help us engage better? So this is the question we're going to be asking at all of our events and everywhere, the open-ended question: how do we make walking, biking, and transit in Eugene safe, easy, and enjoyable? If people have infrastructure ideas, we want to hear them. If they have program ideas, we want to hear them. We're trying to really create this community conversation around this topic. So I'm going to just jump in. Oh, here's just so you all can get a little background preview into what planners do. Our beautiful Excel spreadsheets, just so you know. So let's talk about audiences real quick. So ideally, we want to talk to the whole community, right? But when you say we want to talk to everyone, that's not really very specific. And as planners, we kind of need like, who actually are we trying to talk to? So I just wanted to let you know what our audiences are, and then hear from you all maybe at next meeting, because I don't know if we'll have time today, if you have thoughts for additional audiences that we should really be trying to target. So the first piece is geographic spread. I'm sorry that image isn't super clear, but those are the neighborhood planning districts, and there are 6 of them. So we're going to be doing one tabling session in each area so that so we're kind of going to them. Mostly we'll be in parks or community centers to do those tabling events, and we'll try and do communications around those. So when we're in Bethel, we'll be like, hey, everybody, we're going to be in Bethel in this place at this time. If you live in this area, come talk to us about infrastructure and programs. So that's our first audience. The next audience is some of our more targeted groups. So these are 6 groups that we have been traditionally underrepresented that we really want to make a concerted effort to talk to. One of them is youth. We're hoping to talk to them at the libraries, because the teens are really involved at the Eugene Library. Affordable housing residents, we're going to be going to some events that some of the complexes use in the city. Accessibility advocates, talking to some of the folks in the area, as well as folks who have disabilities. The Latino community through our Office of Equity and Community Engagement, as well as people of color and BIPOC folks, and the folks involved in the LGBTQ+. So those are some of our targeted groups. And then the last audience is our agency partners. Bunch of acronyms up there for the new folks in the room. BEST is Better Eugene Springfield Transportation. They're one of our primary nonprofits who do transportation advocacy. ATC is us, the Active Transportation Committee. LTD, Lane Transit District. SRTS is Safe Routes to School. And then Cascadia Mobility is the bike share, the folks who run bike share and are also a nonprofit in town. UO is University of Oregon, Lane County. And I have a big long list of agency partners, but those were kind of the primary ones. So those are the audiences that we're going to be talking to. If folks, in addition to everyone, like general public, but if folks have other ideas for groups that they think we should reach out to, or say an organization that you have a contact with that you could help us get involved with, or an event, I think the ATC is going to be hopefully a good place for us to have inroads with the community through your connections. Yeah, Connie.
I don't know what all's on there, but it's really important to access the senior living areas.
Mm-hmm.
So, the 29th Willamette, that big complex.
Yeah.
The huge ones, off the river, and there's just some, I think that's really, really important.
Okay, yeah, thanks for mentioning that. We don't have like the senior citizens in our target group, so I'll bring that back to my team and chat with them of and see if we feel like we do have AARP as one of our agency partners, but that's just one avenue. So thanks for bringing that up.
Unhoused, I don't see on there.
Yep, that's another one that I think one of the things that we run into is that we only have 3 people working on this. So we really had to be like, okay, we have to target, because ideally we can talk to every group. But I think this is where the ATC could potentially help us, because we have these 15 people on this committee who can help us do some of that, just telling people about it, which I think I can get into some of our engagement tools. So one of the things we're going to be doing is having some online tools via Engage Eugene. Like I mentioned, the interactive map, a survey, a comment form, planner contact info, so they can just contact us directly. And our plan is to have this QR code that goes to the engagement page on some print materials. So we're going to make project business cards. It's basically got the URL and a QR code that'll take folks to the project page. Bookmarks at the libraries and bookstores in town, and then also yard signs along major corridors. So along the river path, along say 13th, maybe, if there's room for us to put a yard sign. So that when people are out walking and biking around, they see it and they're like, oh, I should make a comment on this because I have an idea. So we'll bring some of those project business cards to you all as ATC members, and you can give them out to folks in your community, or if you go to different meetings, and encourage people to really interact with this process. And I think, oh yeah, here's just a timeline so you all know what we're doing. So we're in planning phase right now. In March, we're planning to launch our engagement strategy. So launch everything that I just told you about. In May, we're going to wrap up engagement. So we're only going to be doing this for like 3-ish months. And then in June through September, we're going to be prioritizing the ideas, right? So I said we're going to have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of ideas. We only have 15 million to spend, maybe even less, because some of that money is going to projects that already exist. So how do we prioritize that? That's something that will come back to the ATC once we get all the ideas and chat with you all, like, what do we do? So we're going to have plans, and then we'll get your feedback on how are we going in the right direction. In November, the infrastructure project list will go to City Council, and they'll have to approve it. And the programs list will go to ATC, and you all can have basically approve that. Do we have the right programs? Are we going in the right direction? I think I'm over by 1 minute. Okay, so I did that in 10 minutes. That's where we're headed. Hopefully it's sort of landing with you all. I can share this little bit of presentation with the ATC. And then if you like mentioning other groups that we should be reaching out to, letting me know if you personally have connections to anyone or any groups that you think we could be spreading this information to. If you think we should have, alternative materials beyond the online tools and the print materials, we would love to hear it. Yeah, Connie.
Just a quick comment, since the Register Guard really doesn't exist much.
I would appreciate, as a non-digital person, to have an announcement in what's happening if there's going to be any in-person events. So
Okay.
especially for in-person events for people not digitally connected, regardless of why. I think that's really important to have.
And is the what's happening is the radio show?
No,
that's the
weekly.
You're dating
So
yourself.
what's,
Connie.
I
That's
know, sorry.
Eugene
I
Weekly-
don't know
Eugene
anything about print
Weekly
materials.
It's called What's Happening.
Oh, that's the Eugene. Weekly. Okay, yes. Yeah, so we're planning to do some radio spots, and then we'll hopefully, thank you for the note about the Eugene Weekly, because I usually put stuff on their online stuff, but I'll see if I can get some ads into their print.
Particularly for non-digital people.
Yeah, no problem.
I would just say too, I think when you do the Engage Eugene, it always makes you log in. You have to have an account and log in. If there's any way to streamline that, because I think for a lot of people, if they could just go directly to a map and say, yeah, this is where I need something, that'd be great. If they have to establish an account and log in.
Yeah, so
I'll just kind of not bother.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we are going to be using a mapping feature that's, the link will be on Engage Eugene, which you can get to without an account, but it'll take you to a GIS platform that you don't need an account to engage with. So that should help with some of that, like having to build an account. You can just click on the link and go to the map and do what you want to do.
And the other thing I was going to say is, since the city council is eventually going to have to approve the list of projects, it might be helpful to talk to the councilors ahead of time. Hopefully they know how to reach their constituents. So get their impact. Where should we go in your district to talk to people? And then if they've told you to go to Peterson Park Barn and you go to Peterson Park Barn, maybe they'll be a little more inclined to actually support the thing at the end of it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Stop sharing this.
Okay, that was great job. Got us back on schedule. Thank you. Yes. Okay, so unless there are any other questions or comments, we'll move on to Alan's presentation on the Alder Street.
Are we gonna cover interviews again? I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna, let me leave audio and then.
Okay, so Julie, Josh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, they can hear me through my computer, but not through the owl. And is it okay if I turn off the lights for the slideshow?
It gets really dark in here, like black. So
Even the doors open?
the doors.
With the-
Yeah, I mean, we could try flicking that light so we
Where
can
the
see
doors
how
open?
dark it gets. I think it's like really dark.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess it'll be temporary. so
Okay,
yes.
it just makes it so much easier to see the screen, and my whole presentation's on the screen. So, okay. Okay, let's see. Why is it not? Your screen is sharing is paused. Why is my screen sharing paused? I've never seen this before. It says your screen sharing is paused. Has anyone ever seen a little thing like that? Resume share. Uh-oh.
Is it because you're in the Zoom window? Like if you just switch to your browser, does it resume if anybody else is on the screen?
There's that. Okay, let me press the slides. That seems to be the problem. Okay. So we're just going to go to, all you're going to get is that. So that's okay. All right. So how many people got a chance to look at these slides beforehand? Oh, great. Thank you. I've made a few changes to it since then. So you'll see some changes. So I am what I think is called a zealous nut. Is that what it is? Yeah, I'm a zealous nut. Okay, good. Especially about the connection between Alder Street and the river path. And I imagine most of you have tried to negotiate that, and it is really difficult.
Is that the area?
It is close. And so you'll see the map in a moment, but we're talking about the area that is where Alder Street comes into Franklin, and then you kind of have to make a big jog around the motel to get across the railroad tracks, and then ultimately to the Ruth Bascom path. And I'll show a map here so to give you orientation in a moment. There's Alder Street on the right and an old picture of the Ruth Bascom path on the lower left. Okay, so back in October, there were experts from Netherlands who came here as consultants, and they reminded us that a bicycle network is only as good as the weakest link. So how good is our bike network? It's only as good as our weakest link. Now, historically, 50 years ago in 1972, Ruth Bascom, and I think that might be her in that picture. This is from a movie. She noted in her film, which you can watch if you link through on that link that I sent to you, that you couldn't get across the railroad tracks from the university. The Autzen footbridge had been built, but you couldn't get to it because there was a freight train It wouldn't keep you from getting across. The city, Lynn County, the university, they all came together. An underpass was built in less than 2 years. Okay, that was 50 years ago. Ruth Baskin was noted for trying to encourage a network of bicycle paths in the city. So what is our weakest link today? It's just up, just downstream from that, about another half to a mile. And here's an overhead view. Hope you can make it out here. Here's Alder Street here, and here is this is an old photo again. The Ruth Baskin path has been rerouted here. To get there, you have to do this number all the way around here and so forth. Okay. Well, 3 things really need to make our bicycle route one that's accessible to all people, young and old, experienced, and I would say instead of maybe beautiful, it just needs to be pleasant. You know, if it's those 3 things, people will use it, and you just have to. All you need to do is just look around, and you'll recognize that that's pretty much the case. And if it's not one of those things, then the use diminishes quickly. Problem with that connection from Alder Street to the Ruth Baskin path is it's not safe. We've had a death, more than one injury there, but we had a death there a number of years ago. It's not convenient. As you can see, it's very circuitous to get to the river path. And it's not beautiful. And why is this important? Why are these things important? Because you can't get kids to ride on there. That's the test. You won't see kids riding across on that path. And in fact, you don't really see a lot of people of any age on that route. And yet on the river path, there are a lot of people walking, bicycling, and Alder Street, of course, there's lots of people walking and bicycling. There's 20,000 students at the U of O, and yet very few of them make their way to the river on the west side of campus. So there is, you can't really see it here, but there is a project that's being constructed right now, and it will provide some connection to the river path. It's in conjunction with the railroad quiet zone. However, it's still going to be unsafe because people who are young or not comfortable riding a bicycle will still have to cross those railroad tracks, and that's an impediment for many people. It's still inconvenient, and it's still going to be unpleasant. So what do? We need an underpass. I've drawn a little red line here where that proposed underpass might go. There's an example of an underpass in Davis, California. A similar situation. So is this possible? It isn't just like some wild idea. This has been something that the city commissioned an engineering report back in 2010, and they said, yes, this is possible. You can do it. And so, in the Transportation System Plan, also known as the TSP, in 2015, it was added. It was a long-range plan. So that was 7 years ago that it was added. Well, why hasn't it been built? Well, first of all, it's expensive. Underpasses are not cheap. There's some land ownership issues and other challenges, but probably because it's no one's backyard. And so no one's been advocating for it. And I'm hoping that's going to change. But so why am I bringing this to you all now? Well, first of all, as you noticed, there are housing projects mushrooming in that area, and there are literally probably thousands of new residents within just blocks of that location. And when the new riverfront district is built, there'll be yet hundreds of more people there, either wanting to go to the university and the west side of campus, or from campus to the new riverfront park. So we got to get started on it now. That kind of project takes years and years to fund and complete. Also, why now? And this is very timely, is that the University of Oregon owns this parcel of all of this land here. And they are interested in swapping this land for some land that the city owns near Autzen Stadium because they want to build another practice field. So if the city gets this land, it'll be just that much easier to build an underpass right through here. Why now? Because there's money now. Congress allocated a lot of money for projects like this. And we also have the pavement bond measure, which of course would not fund a whole entire project like this, but maybe a piece of it. Why now? Because the city council is going to consider this land swap soon. City staff hasn't been able to give me an exact date when city council is going to be addressing this, but it'll probably be in the next 2 to 3 months. And they likely know nothing about this proposed underpass, but they need to. And so the next step is to let them know that we want to complete Ruth Bascom's original vision from 50 years ago, which is a low stress bicycle network. And what can the ACC do? As a collective body, you can write a letter to staff and council urging them to accept the land swap and to dedicate the resources needed to actually complete this crucial part of our bike network. You can also contact organizations and, importantly, to keep this alive on the ATC's agenda in the future. So any other questions? I'm gonna turn off the visuals so that, let's see here, and get other people.
I'm curious what land the city.
A couple minutes for. Okay. Sorry, that was fast. But I had to make it really simple to make it 10 minutes.
Misty, your question was the same as mine.
What's the question?
What's the land that the city's swapping on the other side of the river?
The city owns some land right next to the Leon Harris Parkway at Austin Stadium. And the U of O wants that land to be able to build a new practice facility. So they're proposing this swap.
So that's existing and it's the science center area?
That's the area, yes, near the science.
Is it existing parkland? Is it any of Alton Baker Park?
Yes, some of it is. Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Alan. That was amazing. It made it through that in 10 minutes.
So how do you get on an email thing or whatever to find out about it, or to be able to find out the little
Right, so I can.
If you want to put your.
The notes.
Do you have an email that you could put on here and then I
Yeah,
can?
well, I know they get all the.
If you want to put it there, I can send it to you.
Yeah, so the link is, was sent to you all, and maybe it could be put in, hyperlink in the notes for people who want to go back and look at this set of slides.
Yeah, organized, because there might be some people on YouTube watching that.
Yeah.
Will just talked about a map where you can drop project ideas. Coming soon.
Coming soon. Thank you.
Yeah,
But in terms
I
of
already
city
get the
council's
notification here.
I'm still waiting.
Okay, so it's not in there.
When
obviously.
they having, considering this land swap. And Lindsay Seltzer, who used to be in the transportation planning department, is the one who's the contact person now. So I'm waiting to hear from that, hear from her about that, and then I can let Sue and Mary know, and you all can just pass that on.
Yeah, we'll have to think about process for this, and it'd be good to hear from the city about, how they would respond to Alan's presentation about, feasibility and that kind of thing, and hear what people here are thinking. So maybe this is again, something else we put on a future agenda.
Of course, we don't really need to have them buy into the whole project. All we need to have them do is say, okay, let's not go ahead and build a parking lot on this parcel. Let's save it for some better use in the future. That's all we would need to say at this point. So,
yeah. Alan, thanks for putting that together.
Okay, thanks,
Yeah.
So we only have a few minutes left of the meeting. I felt like maybe addressing the 13th Avenue situation might be the most interesting for folks, but I wonder, we also had, sorry,
there's complete streets adoption.
That's okay. Yeah. Subcommittee report back, which would be the other thing that we might want to give time
I
to.
think there's only one committee that met.
Yeah, I think it's okay to skip that this time.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Reed, do you want to share kind of what we've discovered about 13th and where we're going with it?
Yeah, our folks back on Zoom, like Josh. We want to give him kudos for sending us great photos of the issue. So what had happened was, we're calling it the Duck Store project. But basically they are gonna raise all of these buildings, and then the Duck Store and these buildings are gonna get very, very tall. And so these are gonna get raised, demolished, removed. And they set up their workspace and took the westbound bike lane as part of that. And then we approved it. We, the city of Eugene, said, yeah, go ahead and do that. That caused a huge problem because we just built a protected bikeway over there. It cost $3 million and took off a lot of time. And the business end of that is over here at the university. And so this block really important. And so this is also the block where we have most people walking and biking in the entire city. And we closed both the walking and the biking on one side of the street. And so once we saw Josh's picture, we said, this can't stand. Let's figure out what happened. So I figured out what happened. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but we're going to fix it. And we're going to fix it by reopening up this bike lane first. So we're going to have them move their fence to top of curb. We're going to open this back up. We're going to put in some water-filled barriers. Those barriers are about this tall, and create basically a shared use path space for walking, biking, whatever you want to do in that space. That will complete the corridor of the 13th Avenue Protected Bikeway all the way into campus. So that should be relatively undisturbed. To do that, the space comes from these angle park spaces. So we're going to remove the angle parking. We're going to make that temporarily parallel parking. So we're going to restripe that. And the reason we need to do it in these phases is we can make this applicant pay for all of these barriers that they have to then rent for a year or two. So this is, again, the other thing is, yes, this is taking us a week or two to figure out how to get this better, but it's going to be there for a long time. And so we want to get it right. So we're doing that now. And then Taylor's on the other side of 13th is also going to redevelop. There's going to be a big giant building over here too. So we expect that permit to come in the next couple of months. And they're probably going to want to close the south side. So we're going to be able to repurpose this parking that we're going to have up temporarily for sidewalk. So people will be able to walk on both sides. So that's the phasing that we agreed to. It took us a while to get here, but since then we've been talking about how do we prevent this from happening in the future, because we knew that a lot of these projects were imminent. These folks told us they were going to have projects. We knew that they were in close proximity, and we were approving these traffic control plans piecemeal and not together as a system. And so we're working to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And we're working with the developer to fix this problem as soon as we can. We think as soon as next week, we may have this on the ground. So working as fast as we can, but be diligent out there and always share your photos and tell Willow what's going on and send her a photo. And if we made a mistake, we'll go out and try to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a big one. When I saw those pictures, I was like, what in the world? So I'm really glad that we're on it. And I think our solution is going to serve the people who are walking and biking, which is the vast majority of people who are using this one block. So
Yeah, I'd like to really thank Reed and Rob for their quick response to those emails and stuff like that. So and so this will be great. Thanks, city staff.
okay, we've got 3 minutes left. Let me stop sharing. Yeah.
Andrea, has DPEC met since they probably, hopefully over the holidays, they didn't do anything?
No, not really. It was beginning of December.
Okay, so no
Did get
BPAC
that
here.
example of their end of the year report.
Right, yeah, they do an annual report that summarizes what their committee has done all year, which was great. It was about like 4 pages with pictures and really summarized them really well. So what they did was they called And they went through the minutes and took all the things that they had done and then put them together with pictures and staff and stuff. So I'm gonna start working on that to see. So if we get, because I think it's really important to like close the circle at the end of the year and feel like, wow, we did something.
And it was very well written. I mean,
Yeah.
Very concisely put. This is what the issue was. This is what we did. And this is how you know it worked or what, you know, like that. And
Is there a way we could, or do you want to share that BPAC report with the whole committee?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can just respond to one of the emails.
Absolutely. I sent it to Mary.
yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, I'd like to see